Welcome to the Switch Style Podcast, where we encourage you to think beyond what you hear. I'm your host, Smooth. And audience, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the podcast. This is actually episode 69, and I do want to let you know that this episode and every other episode of the Switch Style Podcast is being brought to you by jacksjournal.com, where you can find the latest music reviews and, of course, the Switch Style Podcast. And audience, before we jump into things, I do want to let you know that you can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And also follow me on Twitter at Jack's Journal. That's Jacs Journal. And coming up on the episode, I'll actually update the Billboard charts for you guys. I'll catch you up on a few albums that came out this past week that I sort of overlooked. I actually don't have any notable new releases for this Friday, July 28th. But I'll let you know about a few albums that came out that I did miss. And last but not least, I'll give you my take on Sevyn Streeter's debut solo album, which is titled Girl Disrupted. So we'll get into all of that and more. So let's jump into it. On the Billboard 200, Jay-Z earns a second week at number 1 with 444. Mr. Carter collected 87,000 units. 61,000 of those were traditional album sales. Interesting stat. As of now, Jay-Z has a total of 25 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200, spanning across all 14 of his number 1 albums. Only Eminem has more weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200, with 31 total weeks. At number 3, French Montana earns 52,000 units of his latest album, Jungle Rules. 16,000 of those were traditional album sales, and this will actually be a quick week for on the charts because French Montana was actually the only debut in the top 10 this week, so congrats to him. And just another quick note on French Montana. The single off of that album, Unforgettable, which features Sway Lee, it actually moved up to number 5 on the Hot 100 this week. So congrats to French Montana. He's doing big things on the charts this week. And on the Hot 100, you guessed it. If you don't know, if you haven't heard it, chances are you have heard it. Despacito is number 1 again for an 11th week. The Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and Justin Bieber single stays at number 1 and rules the world again. And like I told you guys last week, Despacito is the most streamed song of all time. So congrats to Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee, and Justin Bieber. They're all doing big things. So that'll actually wrap up on the charts. So I just want to catch you guys up. I missed a few new releases last week. So if you're a fan of these artists, look out for their new albums or new bodies of work. Meek Mill, the Philly MC, he's back with Wins and Losses. Tyler, the Creator, the Odd Future leader, he's back with Flower Boy. And Meek Mill and Tyler, the Creator, they're actually vying for that number 1 spot on the Billboard 200 on next week's chart. And Lana Del Rey is also in the running for that top spot, so we'll look out for them. 9 Inch Nails, if you're a fan of them, they're back with an EP titled Add Violence. The Latin star Romeo Santos, he's back with Golden. Nav and Metro Boomin, they're back with Perfect Timing. I think this is their first collaborative effort. A highly underrated MC named Trey the Truth. A lot of you guys know about Trey the Truth, and a lot of people don't. But he's back with his latest release, The Truth Part 3. Tyga, for all of, Tyga fans, probably more interested in what's happening with Kylie Jenner and the Black China and the whole Rob thing whenever you think about Tyga. But if you're a Tyga fan, his latest one is out. It's called B, I'm the Shit Too, or Bitch, I'm the Shit Too. So look out for Tyga. And last but not least, superstar DJ Steve Aoki. He's back with Steve Aoki Presents Colony. So look out for all of those albums. If you're a fan of those artists, go check them out. Go support them. The artists need support. That's why I tell you about them every week. So check them out. So if you're here, chances are you're here because you want to know more about Sevyn, or you like Girl Disrupted and you want to hear my take on Girl Disrupted. So I'll go ahead and give that to you. But before I do that, if you haven't heard any of my reviews before or the podcast before, I'd just like to give you a quick bio on the artist. I just like to tell you a little bit about, in this case, Sevyn, before we jump into things, so that when I do speak about certain things in my take, it'll all come together and make sense. So here we go. Amber Streeter, that's Sevyn's real name. She was born July 7th, 1986 in Haines City, Florida. Sevyn first made a mark in the music industry around 2002 as a member of the short-lived girl group TG4, which stood for Tom Girl 4. TG4 released an album titled Time for the New and even scored a minor hit titled Virginity that made it to number 88 on Billboard's Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs chart. TG4 eventually disbanded and Sevyn found herself in another group after being recruited by producer Rich Harrison to join his newly formed girl group, Rich Girl. So if you don't know Rich Harrison, around 03 to about 04 to 06, he was one of the hottest producers in music. And his two biggest hits or his two most notable hits are probably Beyonce's Crazy in Love and A-Marie's One Thing. And if you notice the musical similarities between the two songs, that's Rich Harrison. So back to Sevyn. Rich Girl, they were signed to Jive through Rich Harrison's Richcraft label in 07. The group then scored a minor hit in 2008 with 24s featuring UGK MC Bond B. The single didn't perform too well and the group eventually disbanded before they ever released an album. And quick note, another member of Rich Girl who went by Lindriette at the time, she resurfaced as a member of June's Diary. And if you don't know June's Diary, that's the group that Kelly Rowland put together through her BET series. But if you're curious, Lindriette, she now goes by her first name Crystal, or I think her Instagram handle is actually Crystalline. So just an interesting fact for you. But after 2 attempts with girl group Sevyn, she eventually became a writer and she wrote for Chris Brown. She wrote songs like Yeah 3 Times, Fine China, and Strip. She wrote all of those for Chris Brown. She wrote The Way for Ariana Grande. That was, if you remember, that was Ariana Grande's breakout single. She wrote New Day for Alicia Keys. That was actually on Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire album. And she wrote All the Way Home for Tamar Braxton and many more. Sevyn, she stayed active as a writer, even though she wasn't in a girl group anymore or a solo artist just yet. Her first 2 solo singles, I Like It and The Way with Chris Brown, charted well in 2013. And she then released an EP titled Call Me Crazy But that same year in 2013. And another EP titled Should Have Been There Part 1 followed in 2015. Fast forward to today, or present times, on July 7th, 2017, Sevyn finally released her debut album, Girl Disrupted, on the same day as her birthday. So, another fact for you, I told you earlier, July 7th is Sevyn's birthday. So I'll actually go ahead and give you guys my take on Sevyn's debut album, which of course is titled Girl Disrupted. They say good things come to those who wait. At this point, it could be an overly used cliche, but R&B songstress Sevyn Streeter just might be the perfect embodiment of the commonly used phrase. The Florida native began her career in 2002 with TG4, a girl group that quickly dissolved after scoring a minor hit and releasing only 1 album. She then found herself in a girl group for the second time after being recruited by producer Rich Harrison, who assembled a newly formed vocal group named Rich Girl in 07. Like the first time, Rich Girl landed a smaller hit with the Bond B featuring 24s, but soon disbanded before their debut album was released. In the following years, Sevyn worked behind the scenes as an in-demand songwriter, penning hits for Chris Brown, Ariana Grande, Alicia Keys, Tamar Braxton, and many more. She eventually decided to take a turn as a solo artist, beginning with her 2013 EP, and a follow-up EP arrived in 2015. After 15 long and presumably tough years in the music industry, Girl Disrupted, Sevyn's debut solo album, arrived on her 31st birthday, July 7th, 2017. Per the monologue on Living, Girl Disrupted chronicles the turmoil surrounding her life towards the album's final creative stages. It also happens to coincide with the time where she says she suffered with depression. In essence, Girl Disrupted was not only a liberating experience for her musically, but personally as well. Sevyn, for the most part, she's crafted a body of work that travels the commonly taken highway of love. It's a story of a relationship's ups and downs, but eventually arrives at a familiar destination. My love for you is a true to heart, I'm saving all my love for you vow of undivided attention. She's fully committed and is so unbothered by the other dudes sliding in her DMs. Old School kicks off a stretch of material that fully showcases a healthy affinity for 90s R&B. R&B singer Jeremiah and Detroit rapper Dej Loaf assist on the name-checking Old School. It's a retrospective look at high school love and references their respective R&B influences to move the story along. Soon As I Get Home remakes Faith Evans' 1995 classic of the same name, but adds additional lyrics and a backdrop better suited for the dance floor. Before I Do seemingly drops from the sky and captures your attention in a way that only the most deeply affecting songs can. It's a beautifully produced ballad complete with perfectly timed percussion, breezy acoustic guitars, and a vocal performance that's sure to change your opinion of Sevyn and Girl Disrupted. The cracks in the relationship start to surface on the distant translation. Streeter then appears to briefly solve a few issues through bedroom reconciliation on the seductive peace sign. How many is her first sign of complete frustration? But the line as frank as, how many bitches are you telling you love them? The mood of the album makes a sudden shift, and arguably for the better. Everything in Me is a lyrical triumph and properly closes Girl Disrupted with a display of a well-honed skill that enabled her to traverse the music industry for a decade and a half. In all, Girl Disrupted is a debut that proves Sevyn's ability to craft 90s colored R&B. Like many of her contemporaries, she subconsciously recreates an era that mostly shaped her taste and ear for music. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but just like a few of her peers, Sevyn has yet to find her own identity musically. It is likely to develop over time, but for now, Girl Disrupted provides enough value to keep you wondering what could possibly be next. So there you go, audience. That's actually my take on Sevyn's debut solo album, which is titled Girl Disrupted. And as a whole, there were probably, I want to say about 5 records that I really enjoyed on this album. And I'll just start with My Love for You. That was a really good one. I absolutely loved Before I Do. That's my favorite song on the album. And I don't have the album credits with me, but according to Sevyn, this wasn't an interview that she gave. The Stereotypes produced that one. And if you don't know the Stereotypes, they actually had probably the biggest urban song in all of the world this year, which is Bruno Mars' That's What I Like. They're the production team behind that one. But I absolutely love Before I Do. It's an amazing song. Probably my favorite Sevyn song by far, and it actually, for me, it elevates the quality of the album. That's how powerful one song can be. But Translation was another good one. How Many, and the last track, Everything in Me. Overall, I think it's a solid album. I think Sevyn, like some of her other peers, they sort of get trapped in 90s R&B, and I know 90s R&B was such a great time for music, specifically R&B. I'm kind of interested to see what Sevyn does going forward, how she'll develop her own musical identity. I'm really interested to see how that works out, but for now, I think it's a solid debut. Like I said, there's about 5 songs out of the 13 on the album that I really like, and there were some other good songs, but I think music is subjective anyway, so you might hear the album and you might think you might like every track. It just depends on the person. And honestly, I don't have any bad things to say about Girl Disrupted. I might have expected a bit more transparency, and considering what a lot of her peers are doing these days, like the Dreezys, the SZAs, the Solanges, you expect a bit more transparency, and I didn't get that with Sevyn. And you could tell that at times some of these songs probably could have been sung by other singers. Most of the songs, they lack a lot of specific details that tie the songs directly to Sevyn, and that's what's missing. So overall, I think it's a solid album. I would definitely say check it out, especially if you're a fan of Sevyn. It's a solid debut. Like I said, there's a good 5 songs that I really do like. I want to thank Sevyn for finally putting out a body of work. This is one we've been waiting on, and she finally delivered. So thank you, Sevyn, for that. And thank you, audience, for tuning in. Again, you can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And also follow me on Twitter at Jax Journal. That's JACS Journal. And also go check out jacsjournal.com. That's JACSjournal.com, where you can find my take and a bunch of other takes on other albums that have come out this year, and also the podcast as well. And got a lot of great stuff coming up for you guys very soon. But thanks again, audience. I really appreciate you listening, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.